Thanks for tuning in to the HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda Carney. The HR Uprising is focused on helping forward-thinking people professionals deliver real lasting value in their organisations. I'm a chartered psychologist, speaker and trainer, and recently authored the best-selling business book, How to Be a Change Superhero. My day job is founder and CEO of software and training business Actus. This gives me the opportunity to work with other businesses like yours. We are focused on building a better workplace for people wherever they are located, with the help of our performance, learning and talent management software and our training and consultancy services. Every week on the podcast, I will be covering different topics and challenges, joined by relevant experts and real-life people professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy and get value from this week's episode. Hi everybody, just a quick message to say, if you're interested in working with me on the topic of change, I've just agreed dates kicking off the 30th of September 2021 for our next cohort of Change Superheroes. It's a really small select group we tend to work with. We have three modules, different aspects of change, and you get free 360 feedback. And I run it personally, and I really, really love running this particular training session. It tends to be HR, OD, and occasionally business professionals who are involved in change, and it's really, really practical. So if you're looking for some self-development on the topic of change, then why not take a look at our website and do get in touch if you'd like to know more about that. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda Carney, and I'm delighted to have an international best-selling author with me today, Dr. Beverley Kaye. I'm going to get her introduced a little bit about herself. I'm very pleased that she's joining me first thing in the morning, all the way from California, which I'm grateful to you for getting up early for us this morning. But we're going to focus in on employee engagement and really how to have a slightly different approach to retaining and engaging employees. And we've just been chatting off screen about how maybe the title of your book might be quite challenging, particularly for us Brits who are listening to this, Bev. Do you want to tell us a little, would you like to introduce yourself, and then perhaps we'll talk a little bit about the book and what you're suggesting.
Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Bev Kaye, and I am a Jersey girl transplanted to Los Angeles, and have been a consultant for the past 4 decades. And my work is all in the area of career development, engagement, and retention. And on the engagement and retention side, I wrote a book, actually wrote it for the first time 20 years ago. And I am now on the 6th edition. And the title of the book is Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, Getting Good People to Stay. And I happen to work with a publisher who believes the title of the book should say it all, not the subtitle. The title should tell the looker in a bookstore what it's all about. And so each word was carefully considered. The word love, when we said, my co-author and I, that we had to have it in the cover, that was 1999. And the publisher said, "Are you sure? Isn't there another word?" And this is a business book. And, no matter how much we looked, we could not find a word that said as much as love, the word love, even if you don't use it. You think love, caring about, nurturing, recognizing, even saying hello to, all of those things count. And we stuck with the word love. And now, to my thrill, it's okay to use love in the workplace. The word lose is all about, sometimes you love them and you still lose them. And the thing is that worse is losing them and having them stay. You know, having them not have their engagement, not have their excitement. So yes, we're still going to lose, but we don't want to lose them on the job and have them stay. And the word good, just because I think too often we look to keep people who are just our hypos, and we don't think about all the treasure in the massive middle. And stay now, the word stay has taken on new meaning, at least in the United States, because if not the globe, because we are saying there are multiple ways to stay within your own organization. So don't be so quick to look outside for something better. Look inside first. And that's really what the whole book is about.
So I can see that was very relevant 20 years ago, but actually I can see why it's still so entirely relevant. The whole subject about employee engagement is still key. What you just alluded to there in terms of retaining all people, so it's not just the top potential strengths, and also things like career paths. Lots of people want to talk about. So how do we stay and give people different routes? So all of those are really topical. And then of course the whole idea of love them, which is so interesting. So since we've been working in this more remote way, one of the big shifts I think I have suggested that we need to do as line managers is be more people first centric. I feel that we've got quite transactional in the workplace, but with this remote working through a pandemic, working remotely, actually being people oriented, which I guess is, love them, has actually become really, really relevant or very topical, it would seem to me.
Right.
Have you found that in terms of the remote working, how this has kind of come to the fore again?
Absolutely. In fact, one piece that I'm going to give you to share with your followers is something I wrote about 26 ways to stay connected to your remote employees. And the book is actually written around the alphabet. So there's 26 chapters, 26 ways. And I believe that love shows through in the relationships you build, in the way you develop and grow people, and in the culture or environment that a manager builds. So you're right on about people-centric, and never have I heard us say it more than now. Because people are everything. Our talent is everything. And now I think there are choices for talent. And talent won't put up with a manager who doesn't treat them well.
And it is all about, again, as people are maybe in hybrid environments or working remotely, you haven't necessarily got the draw of the office or the things. So that relationship with the line manager, it becomes much more of a key to the engagement. I mean, it was always, when you looked at what drove engagement, actually, it all came down to, I'd just say 70 or 80% of what drives engagement comes down to what line managers do, I guess, and how they do it. I mean, do you have any sort of specifics that you'd say? You say you just brought out the 6th edition of your book, and I say congratulations on having such a successful book to be on your 6th edition is an international bestseller. What sort of tips would you say? What's evolved over that period of time in terms of manager skills or conversations? Have things changed?
It's interesting. The surround sound has changed. In 20 years, we've been through massive downsizing, and we've been through massive not enough talent to fill the roles. And now the world went through COVID, when people started working from home. Through all of that, the main tenets of the book, the main teachings of the book have remained the same. And although some, I said it's 26 chapters, when we teach it, we divide it into three clusters or groups. And one cluster is development and growth. And we have 6 or 7 of the chapters that fit there. The second cluster is relationships, and 6 or 7 chapters fit there. And the third is culture, and 6 or 7 fit there. And so an engagement-focused manager, a talent-focused manager attends to all those things. And I think nowadays, a talent-focused manager asks each and every employee what they want. So it's not like I do for one, I do for all, because now there's many different alls out there.
It's absolutely right. So it's flexing and adapting your style to the needs of your team, which is challenging for managers, because again, you can't be transactional. You've got to have empathy, you've got to have emotional intelligence, and you've got to have flexibility to be able to adapt your style, and also a bit about being motivated to do it as well as a line manager in that situation.
Right. And you know, you remind me of the Q chapter, because Q stands for question. And the subtitle is, which will you keep, the rules or the people? And so over the 2 decades, it is time to question old rules and to question a rule for the sake of your talent. And that chapter has gotten a lot of attention, especially this year with COVID. It's like, what rules, what ways of working do we throw out? And what rules do we keep? And it makes it harder for a manager, because in the old days, a manager could say, I would love to say yes to you for that request. But if I say yes to you, I have to say yes to everybody else. Now, with the strength of the diversity and inclusion and equity wave around the world, managers have to treat people as individuals and not as a group.
I mean, I think is one of the real challenges for HR as well at the moment in terms of managing these, because I completely agree, to get the best out of people, people want to be treated as individuals, which means you've got to be very adaptable as a manager. And I guess that might mean things like stopping the presenteeism, the 9 to 5, being more flexible about how people work, where people work, those sort of things. And it's I suppose it's going to come back down to trust. We've talked about quite a few times on the podcast is trusting people not to abuse it. And the challenge that HR often have to put rules in for the minority to manage these things. What happens if people abuse the freedom or otherwise? I don't know whether are there any solutions or tips that you've got for HR to help with this?
You know, I think HR should say to managers, ask your people what they need now in this environment, and listen carefully to what they say they need and want. You know, the first chapter in the book is the A for the alphabet, and A stands for ask. And it's really about not having to do exit interviews if you do what we call stay interviews. If you ask your people why they stay and what they need. And when we suggest that, and we have a whole list of great stay interview questions, because when managers ask, what can I do to keep you? It's when you hand in your resignation. And I think they should ask that question sooner and often.
So that's an interesting one, isn't it? So very often you wouldn't have that conversation until the person actually was going. So you're saying proactively, what do you like, what works, what keeps you, what will keep you motivated?
So exactly. And when we suggest managers do that, many of them kind of go, oh, well, if I asked my people, they would say more money, or that other job, or that whatever that I can't produce. Therefore, I'm afraid to open up that whole conversation. And what we say to them is open it anyway, because the data you'll get is so important. And if their first answer is dollars or that other job, then tell the truth and say, I can't deliver on that. But boy, I want to know what else matters, because I'm determined to find something that I can get my arms around, that I can deliver, because I don't want to lose you.
That's it's triggered me thinking about the emotional bank account, Cubby's thing about the emotion. It's a real deposit in the emotional bank account with your people that you're genuinely wanting to do the best by them. That is you can see why that would create loyalty, because they feel valued as individuals.
Right. Absolutely. In fact, a good exercise for any of your listeners is take the table of contents from the book, and you could probably get it online, but if you want to buy the book, do, and show the table of contents A through Z's to each one of your employees and say, which 3 do you want more of from me? And that will target you to those 3 things. Because one employee would say, well, the C for career. Another employee would say, no, it's the L in your book for link. I don't have any network anymore now that I'm remote. I'd love to have a meeting with 3 or 4 people. So there are many things that are possible, but each individual has to answer for themselves.
So that's so basically the book you're saying is got 26 chapters. It's all about that. It's almost conversation starters or topics that you could get going with.
They are 26 practices, and within each chapter is probably 126 ideas, because you have to say what's comfortable for me as a manager and as a leader.
I think that sounds like a really useful, really practical. So we like to make things practical in the HR Uprising. So really practical ways, because often managers don't know where to start these conversations. So it could help them to do it.
Exactly.
If we're in HR, in a business, we could look at those, as you say, get the table of contents and give people and share, educate managers as to how they could have these broader, less transactional conversations with people.
Exactly.
So they don't actually have to use the love word, or is it in terms of that? That is basically what it's about, treating them as an individual and caring deeply for what people value.
And in fact, on the back of the book, it says, admit it, you love them, even if you don't use that word. They are your talent, you need them, etc.
And we do need these relationships in the workplace, don't we? And that's maybe again something where we are working more remotely, to make sure that we still have this connection with people, because we need emotional relationships. I'm thinking also going back to the engagement questions, the original sort of Gallup engagement questions that people always used to talk about. That I have a best friend at work. That was often a question that people would think was quite weird. But if you reality, it's people that keep you with an organization, isn't it? Having close relationships.
It is. That's the title of your book. It's people that keep you.
Yeah.
And are you keeping your people? And are you noticing, like, now that we have Zoom, managers, look at the room that your employee is Zooming from, ask a question about it. If their puppy enters the room, ask about that, show interest in the whole person.
Yeah.
And that's very different from the old days of leave your personal life at home.
It is, yes. It's so much more intimate seeing in people's houses, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
So those sound very practical things that we can do in terms of using your book there. Are there any other tips that you've got or that you found have been particularly important for? Well, you mentioned inclusion. That is a really interesting topic at the moment, and the awareness has certainly developed hugely over the last 20 years. What thoughts have you got on that?
Well, it's interesting you ask, because the one request the publisher made on this edition was to show the link between engagement and inclusion. And we thought we had it in our D chapter. And D stands for dignity, show respect. And he said, no, I think it's in every chapter. And that was very smart, because it made us look at every single chapter and realize that it was crucial to inclusion. And when we asked, we're not diversity inclusion experts, but we asked our friends who have written those books. And we said, can you pick 5 chapters, 5 practices of the 26 that most relate to inclusion and belonging? And no one picked the same 5.
Oh, really?
So it blew my theory. But what it said is it depends on the individual and how they want to be included as to what most connects to inclusion. The T is for truth, tell it. That's a big connector. And the U is for understand, listen deeper. And that's crucial. And the M is for mentor. And I want to feel like I'm being mentored. And that's critical to my feeling included.
And I guess it's going to vary, isn't it?
For each one, right?
And it might vary from where you are, not just in people's careers as well. So at certain stages you might want to be more mentored, other times you want to be understood. It depends on your needs at the time, or exactly. What's going to be the thing that's most needed for you.
Exactly. And as a career specialist and writer of books on career, of course, I think it's one of the things closest to home. Like if I can't see my future with this company, if I don't feel like I'm growing, not necessarily moving up. And another book I wrote was titled Up is Not the Only Way. So I think people have to see multiple ways to grow in their own organization.
And that is about your manager believing in you and feeling you've got opportunities and to play to your strengths. And again, in flatter organizations, it isn't always about just going up and being line managers. As you say, it's finding those the ways in which we feel fulfilled. A lot of that is about learning and things like that. You don't have to be promoted necessarily to feel fulfilled.
Absolutely. And the O in the book is for opportunities. And I think people are either opportunity minded or opportunity blinded. They do not see what's right in front of them. And I think we have to all be much more opportunity minded now.
So if you were speaking to an HR audience and they're thinking, this all makes sense to me, Bev, I get all of this. I'd love my managers to do more of this. You talked about things to do with culture. A lot of that is about maybe having a culture where this feels acceptable. Have you got any tips for people who are trying to enable this kind of approach in their cultures?
I think that HR and in the back of the book, there's a set of 12 questions for HR leaders to have with teams with themselves about, are we building the systems and the structures to support this feeling of I'm staying? Because it's not all on the back of the manager. And I want to underline that. It's on the back of the individual who has to say to the manager, I need more of this. Here's how to engage me. So it is, speaking to HR people in your audience, I always say it's a 3-part stakeholder game where the individual is the spark, the manager is the support, not the answer machine, and the organization creates the systems and the structure.
The triangulation, really, about getting,
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Three interlocking circles.
Fantastic. So I think it sounds great. We'll put links in the show notes to your book and to your website. So in terms of if people wanted to get in touch with you or know more about your work, how would they find you?
The easiest is, I guess, the website. And it's Bev Kaye and Company. And the books are all described there. And I'm glad to, chat with anybody who wants to chat about these ideas.
Fantastic. Well, we'll direct them to the website from hruprising.com. On our show notes, we'll always have a page where we do all the links where people can connect with you and learn more about what it is. Because what I love about this is it sounds very, very practical. Whether you're in HR or a manager, there's some just thought-provoking. You don't have to put it all into action, but just might trigger a few thoughts as to things that you could do.
One new way of doing something.
You could do one a month or something, couldn't you? Yeah, it's a bit of a theme to just freshen up what we're doing. It's always good too. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us on the HR Uprising. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.